There are questions that are uncomfortable to ask. There are questions that are uncomfortable to answer. And then there are questions that go to the very heart of whether a cabinet secretary can do her job without compromise, without conflict of interest, without her judgment being clouded by something other than national security. Representative Sidney Kamlager-Dove, Democrat from California, just asked one of those questions.
So according to the Wall Street Journal, you and Mr. L have a close relationship that has made President Trump, quote, uncomfortable. The president reportedly denounced Corey Lewandowski as your chief of staff due to reports of a romantic relationship between the two of you.
Secretary Noem, at any time during your tenure as Director of Department of Homeland Security, have you had sexual relations with Corey Lewandowski? Not because she wants tabloid gossip, not because she's being prurient, because Corey Lewandowski, a man with a decades-long record of physical batteries, sexual harassment, illegal lobbying, and bringing a loaded gun into a federal building, has been given unchecked power inside DHS. He fires FEMA administrators. He reviews contracts.
Under your leadership, this person has done things like fire your FEMA administrator while sitting behind your desk, which is your job to do, lobby to build the controversial detention facility known as Alligator Alcatraz.
He makes decisions that affect national security, and he has no qualifications, no experience, and no accountability. The question isn't about sex. It's about judgment. It's about who's really running the Department of Homeland Security. Let's watch. I'll break it down.
The gentlelady from California is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Secretary, for joining us. Finally, you are in charge of protecting the homeland. And so your judgment and the judgment of your senior staff can be the difference between life and death. So I think that judgment would need to be unassailable. Why then, is the question, have you made Corey Lewandowski your de facto chief of staff who possesses an unchecked level of power at DHS? Under your leadership, this person has done things like fire your FEMA administrator while sitting behind your desk, which is your job to do, lobby to build the controversial detention facility known as Alligator Alcatraz, which has turned into a legal boondoggle costing Florida millions, and have veto and reviewing and signing power over large DHS contracts and grants, which again is your job. DHS has critical agency components like the Secret Service, FEMA, Border Patrol, cybersecurity. So does Corey Lewandowski have national security experience, military experience, law enforcement experience? No. He is a lobbyist, a failed campaign manager, which is causing my constituents who are waiting for their FEMA dollars and me to wonder what are his qualifications for this job. So according to the Wall Street Journal, you and Mr. L have a close relationship that has made President Trump, quote, uncomfortable. The president reportedly denounced Corey Lewandowski as your chief of staff due to reports of a romantic relationship between the two of you. So instead, you designated him as a special government employee, a position he has had well beyond the allowed 130 days and requires him to disclose if he is making money off of his position. Trump knows that this guy is shady. Corey has a decades-long record of physical battery, sexual harassment, illegal lobbying for a Venezuelan oil company, and bringing a loaded gun into a federal building. Despite being fired or removed from virtually every position he has ever held due to misconduct, he now wields unchecked, unconfirmed, undisclosed power over your department. This person has no experience running anything close to Department of Homeland Security or even advising someone in your position. He is unqualified, which again has left my constituents and I wondering why he is your top official. So Secretary Noem, at any time during your tenure as Director of Department of Homeland Security, have you had sexual relations with Corey Lewandowski?
Mr. Chairman, I am shocked that we're going down and peddling tabloid garbage in this committee today.
Reclaiming
and
my
ma'am,
time.
one thing that I would tell you is that he is a special government employee who works for the White House. There are thousands of them in the federal government.
So reclaiming
and
my
as
time,
an advisor,
Secretary, it is
and has
okay for
no,
you to be
no
offended
authority
by
to
the
be
question.
making any
It is
decisions.
okay for you to
has
be
no
offended
authority
by the
to
question.
be making
But it is
decisions
also
and
a
putting
real
up your
question.
position. So what I would say
And
to
you should be able to
is
answer
that
the
what we do at the
question
Department of Homeland Security
clearly
every single
and without
day,
any hesitation.
every single day is to protect
If
this
someone
country
is
and to
asking
make
if
decisions.
you or any federal official is sleeping with their subordinate, that should be the easiest. You should be wanting to answer that question.
Is garbage?
Because it is not about
It is
your sex
offensive
life.
that you have brought
It is
that up.
about your
So
judgment.
that kind of garbage
It is
has
about
been refuted
reclaiming
for
my
years,
time so
and
that
you
I
need
can
to
hear myself.
recognize-
Time belongs to the gentlelady from California, but it'd be nice if you would let her respond.
I will. I want to let you know it is about your judgment and decision-making. It is about the 260,000 employees that work under you that want to make sure that you are giving information and making decisions clearly. It is about conflict of interest. It is about a national security risk. Department of Homeland Security was created right after 9/11 to protect the homeland. And DHS has circulated an internal bulletin to law enforcement partners warning that the conflict of the war we're in could inspire lone actors or small-scale cyber activity inside the United States, according to a memo obtained by ABC News. So American lives are at risk. The people who work for you are at risk. And they want to know that the person at the top, you, are making decisions clearly, without any sort of cloudiness, and that they're your decisions because you're the secretary who was confirmed. That's what this is about. Saving the lives of Americans and not costing them millions of dollars and not having a secretary who's compromised in her decision-making. And Mr. Chair, before I yield my time, I would like to enter into the record some articles, and I'm asking for unanimous consent. Noem tightens her grip on DHS. Lewandowski fired FEMA admin.
Without
while saying,
objection.
Okay. The next one is Kristi Noem secretly took a cut of political donations from ProPublica.
Without objection.
Kristi Noem fires pilot over a blanket, but is forced to reinstate him to fly home. Wall Street Journal.
Without objection.
Lewandowski taking out trash at Noem's D.C. home. Daily Beast.
Without objection.
Barbie's Mile High privacy chamber with alleged lover exposed. Wall Street Journal, how Corey Lewandowski became Kristi Noem's gatekeeper at DHS.
Without objection.
A pilot fired over Kristi Noem's missing blanket and the constant chaos inside DHS. Wall Street Journal. Police charge Trump campaign manager with assault. PBS News.
Without objection.
Woman who accused Corey Lewandowski of assault speaks out. I don't want this to happen to anyone else. CBS News. Lewandowski's firm quietly inked deal with Venezuela-owned company Politico.
Without objection.
List of U.S. cities raising security amid Iran conflict. Newsweek.
Without objection.
Kristi Noem, I have a few more, I'm sorry. Kristi Noem misled Congress yesterday about top aides' role in DHS contracts.
Without objection.
Policy number 10271 from ICE, it is an anti-fraternization policy prohibiting romantic or sexual relationships between supervisors and their subordinates. And with that, I yield.
Without objection. Gentleman from Texas, recognized for 5 minutes.
There is a reason Representative Kamlager-Dove asked the question she asked, and it has nothing to do with tabloid gossip or prurient interest. It has to do with power. Unchecked, unaccountable, undisclosed power wielded by a man with no qualifications, no experience, and a decades-long record of misconduct so extensive that even Donald Trump, reportedly got uncomfortable. Corey Lewandowski is not a government employee in any normal sense. He's a lobbyist, a failed campaign manager, a man fired or removed from virtually every position he's ever held due to misconduct, physical batteries, sexual harassment, illegal lobbying for a Venezuelan oil company, bringing a loaded gun into a federal building. This is the person Kristi Noem has installed as her de facto chief of staff, with power to fire FEMA administrators, review and sign off on large contracts, lobby for detention facilities, and insert himself into virtually every major decision at an agency responsible for protecting the homeland. Kamlager-Dove laid out the case methodically because she knew Noem would try to dismiss it as tabloid trash. She started with the facts. The FEMA administrator fired while Lewandowski sat behind Noem's desk. That's not advising. That's doing. That's exercising authority that belongs to a confirmed cabinet secretary, not a political hanger-on with no security clearance and no accountability. The Alligator Alcatraz facility, a legal boondoggle costing Florida millions. Lewandowski lobbied for it. He had no authority to lobby for it. He did it anyway. Contract review and signing power over millions in taxpayer money. Lewandowski has it. He has no business having it. He has no experience with government contracting, no oversight, no disclosure requirements. He just has access. And then Kamlager-Dove got to the heart of it. Why does he have this power? What explains a cabinet secretary handing the keys to a man with this record, this history, this lack of qualification? The Wall Street Journal and other outlets have reported extensively on the relationship between Noem and Lewandowski. Reports that made President Trump uncomfortable. Reports of a romantic relationship. Reports that led Trump to denounce Lewandowski as Noem's chief of staff. So they found a workaround, designated him a special government employee, a category meant for temporary experts, not permanent power brokers. Kept him beyond the 130-day limit. Gave him all the authority without any of the oversight. Noem's response to the direct question was to call it tabloid garbage, to deflect, to change the subject. She never answered. She never said no. She never said, that's inappropriate. She never said, I have nothing to hide. She just attacked the question and moved on. But Kamlager-Dove wasn't finished. She reclaimed her time and explained patiently why this matters. It matters because 260,000 employees work under Noem, because DHS was created after 9/11 to protect the homeland, because right now, DHS has circulated internal bulletins warning about lone actors and cyber threats inspired by overseas conflicts, because American lives are literally at risk, and the people responsible for protecting those lives deserve to know that their secretary is making decisions clearly, without compromise, without conflict of interest, without her judgment clouded by a personal relationship with someone who has no business being in the room. The articles Kamlager-Dove entered into the record tell the rest of the story. Noem firing a pilot midair over a missing blanket, then having to rehire him because nobody else could fly. Noem taking cuts of political donations. Lewandowski taking out trash at her D.C. home. The mile-high privacy chamber on the luxury jet. The assault charges. The sexual harassment allegations. The illegal lobbying. Piece by piece, a picture emerges of an agency run not by its confirmed secretary, but by an unaccountable fixer with a toxic history and no qualifications. And the ICE anti-fraternization policy Kamlager-Dove entered? That's the final piece. Policy 10271 explicitly prohibits romantic or sexual relationships between supervisors and their subordinates. It exists for a reason. Because those relationships create conflicts of interest, because they undermine morale, because they compromise judgment, because when the person you're sleeping with is also the person making decisions, nobody can trust that those decisions are being made for the right reasons. Noem never addressed that policy, never explained how Lewandowski's role squares with it, never answered whether the relationship exists or existed. She just called the question garbage and hoped everyone would move on. But Kamlager-Dove wouldn't let her. She kept coming back to the same point. This is not about sex. This is about judgment. This is about whether the person in charge of protecting the homeland is compromised. This is about whether decisions affecting national security are being made by a confirmed secretary or by a lobbyist with a loaded gun and a history of violence. the survivors of 9/11, the families who lost loved ones, the first responders who ran toward danger. They didn't create DHS so it could be run this way. They didn't create it so a failed campaign manager could fire FEMA administrators and review contracts and lobby for detention facilities. They created it to protect the homeland. And right now, that homeland is less protected because the person in charge won't answer a simple question about who's really running the show.